In 2022, a man named Liam Kavanagh bought himself a £10 million private jet, then a £20 million country estate, then a yacht, then a fleet of luxury supercars. Nothing unusual there, rich people buy stupid all the time. Except Liam Kavanagh wasn't rich, but not really. Every penny of that came from a single council in Essex, money that was supposed to, fix potholes or fund libraries or keep the bins collected. £130 million allegedly embezzled from council tax. And here's what makes this truly insane. Thurrock Council didn't just give him their money, they borrowed over £1 billion from 150 other councils to give to him as well. Which means if you pay council tax anywhere in England, there's a decent chance that some of your money helped buy that man a jet. But Thurrock isn't an isolated case of one dodgy deal gone wrong. It's one of nine UK councils that have effectively declared bankruptcy since 2018. Combined debt over £5 billion. And what I found when I started following the money is a pattern so consistent it can't be coincidence. The same companies keep showing up, the same consultants keep getting paid, and the same people keep walking away rich while your local services collapse. Hey, I'm Andy Roberts, welcome to The Fine Print. Right, let's establish the scale of what we're actually dealing with here, because I don't think most people realise how unprecedented this is. A Section 114 notice is the closest thing a UK council can get to declaring bankruptcy. It's a formal admission that they cannot balance their books. Before 2018, the last time any English council issued one was Hackney in the year of 2000. Since 2018, 9 councils, 14 notices, billions in debt. And the numbers are genuinely staggering. Woking, a borough council in Surrey with an annual core budget of £16 million, somehow accumulated £1.8 billion in debt. Now, no, that is not a typo. Their debt is over 100 times their annual budget. Thurrock, the one with the private jet situation, lost £200 million on solar farm investments alone. We'll get to how that spectacularly went wrong in a moment. Birmingham, Europe's largest local authority, faces £760 million in equal pay liabilities, which would be bad enough on its own, but they also somehow managed to turn a £19 million IT project into a £216 million disaster. That is a cost overrun of over, 1,000%. Croydon became the only council in history to issue 3 bankruptcy notices in 2020, 2021 and 2022. Their council-owned housing developer received £260 million in loans before being wound up with £68 million written off. Nottingham lost £38 million on a council-run energy company that was supposed to save residents' money. Slough quadrupled its borrowing from £180 million to £760 million with, and I am quoting the government inspector here, little evidence this followed any strategic or commercial plan. Now, you might be thinking, alright, okay, councils made some boo-boos, some bad decisions here and there, that's unfortunate, but surely there are checks and balances in place. Surely someone's job is to prevent this. And you'd be right, there were checks and balances. The Audit Commission, the independent body that used to oversee local government, was abolished in 2015. And what replaced it is, well, essentially nothing. Councils now hire private audit firms, the same audit firms that also sell them consultancy services. The same audit firms that profit whether the council succeeds or fails. Remember that, because we're going to see those same names come up again and again and again. But first I want to talk about Birmingham, because what happened there is it's just a masterclass in how to waste public money. Birmingham City Council's Oracle IT implementation is, without exaggeration, the most expensive single IT project failure in UK local government history. Well, here's the setup. Birmingham had an old SAP system running their finances. It worked. I mean, it wasn't glamorous, but it worked. In 2019, they decided to replace it with Oracle Fusion Cloud ERP, a shiny new system that would modernize everything. Original budget, £19 million. Final cost, so far, £216.5 million. For a spreadsheet! Give me £2,000, I'll get it done in a week. And that's not a cost overrun. I mean, that is financial arson. The system was implemented by a company called Evosys, and despite staff testing reporting just days before launch that the system was unstable and failing to load properly, they went live anyway in April 2022. Of course, the results were immediate and catastrophic. The core bank reconciliation system, the bit that tracks money coming in and going out, failed completely. The council literally could not tell how much money they had. Security features that were supposed to detect fraud, never switched on. For 18 months, there was no way to track if someone was cooking the books. A Grant Thornton audit found a culture where, and I'm quoting, "bad news was not welcome." Critical information about how badly the system was failing was hidden from elected councillors for approximately 13 months. But here's the part that really gets me. Birmingham lacked the in-house expertise to properly oversee what Oracle and Evosys were doing. They couldn't act as what's called an intelligent customer, someone who actually understands what they're buying. So what did they do? They hired external consultants to help. The same consultants who were already billing them, the same consultants who had no incentive to flag problems because problems meant more billable hours. By late 2023, the council was spending £500,000 per month on temporary staff just to manually do what the computer system was supposed to handle automatically. They've had to hire people to do the computer's job because the computer they spent 200 million quid on doesn't work. The council hasn't been able to file auditable accounts since 2022. They don't expect to have a functioning finance system until later in 2026. And Oracle, Evosys, they got paid. Of course they did. Every damn penny. Now you might think Birmingham would have learnt from past experience with big IT contractors. No, they did not. Because this wasn't even their first disaster. From 2006 to 2019, Birmingham had a £475 million contract with Capita, 13 years, and at the end of it, one councillor admitted that elected members had, quote, little idea how much the arrangement was costing or what is going on. £475 million, over more than a decade, and the people who were supposed to be overseeing it didn't even understand what it was that they were paying for. Birmingham eventually brought those services back in-house, but not before Capita had extracted nearly £500 million from the city. Which brings us to a company that deserves its own section.
Let's dig into some investment scenarios.
Okay.
Uh-oh.
Welcome to the
Capita. If you've never heard of them, count yourself lucky, because you've almost certainly interacted with their work. They handle everything from TV licensing to NHS administration to council services. Their track record is, let's say, consistent. At Barnet Council in London, Capita signed a £322 million 10-year contract in 2013 under something called the One Barnet programme. The idea was that outsourcing everything to Capita would save money and improve services. Great. Except internal audits later found there was no documented IT disaster recovery plans. Technical errors on Capita's systems caused staff underpayments. The council eventually demanded £4.12 million in compensation for delivery failures before bringing 370 staff back in-house and terminating the contract early. That's the pattern. Councils sign long-term contracts, problems arise, services deteriorate, but extracting yourself costs even more money. It's a trap. And in 2023, Capita gave us a lovely demonstration of what happens when you trust critical public infrastructure to a single private company. The Black Basta ransomware group spent 9 days inside Capita's systems before anyone noticed. Council phone lines across multiple authorities went down. Data on 6.6 million people was exposed. Remember that when the government says your digital ID information will be safe. The Information Commissioner's Office initially proposed a £45 million fine. It was reduced to 14 million. 8,000 claimants are now suing Capita in the High Court, and councils are still using them. Serco, Capita's equally charming cousin in the outsourcing world, has a similar record. At Thurrock, their back office services contract was terminated 5 years early. The council paid a £10 million exit fee just to get rid of them. At Peterborough, their contract was ended 7 years early to save money. Serco was fined £6.8 million for failing in housing asylum seekers in Glasgow. And alongside G4S, they were investigated by the Serious Fraud Office for charging the Ministry of Justice for electronic tags that, and I cannot stress this enough, did not exist. They ended up repaying £68 million plus penalties. But here is what is truly maddening. Despite all of this, the failures, the fines, the fraud investigations, councils keep signing new contracts with these companies. Because once you've outsourced expertise, you've lost all ability to do things yourself. You become dependent. And these companies know it. Now, if you've seen my video on how the government wants to track your every move, link in the description by the way, you'll know that I am deeply suspicious of large organizations telling us they have our best interests at heart. Well, it gets worse because it's not just the IT contracts and outsourcing deals where money is disappearing. There's a financial product that's been quietly draining councils' budgets for over a decade, and the story of how it gets sold to councils involves kickbacks, conflicts of interest, and about £15 billion of toxic debt. LOBO stands for Lender Option Borrower Option. It's a type of loan that approximately 240 UK councils currently hold, totaling to £15 billion. Here's how they work and how they're a trap. When a council needs to borrow money, the safest option is usually the Public Works Loan Board. It's a government lending facility with low fixed interest rates, currently around 2 to 3%. LOBO loans offered what looked like a better deal, a low initial rate that could be adjusted later on. Banks including Barclays, Royal Bank of Scotland, Dexia and Commerzbank sold these aggressively to councils through the 2000s. The catch? The bank can raise the interest rate whenever they like. The council can only refuse by repaying the entire loan immediately, which of course they can't afford to do, so they're stuck paying whatever rate the bank demands. Many councils are now paying 7% or more. The estimated excess interest cost across all councils, £145 million every single year. Oh, but it gets shadier. These loans weren't sold directly by banks. They went through Treasury Management Advisors, companies whose job was supposedly to help councils make good financial decisions. A parliamentary investigation found something remarkable. When Butlers, a Treasury advisor owned by interdealer broker ICAP, recommended LOBO loans to councils, ICAP ended up brokering 84% of those contracts. When Sector Treasury Services, owned by Capita, yes, them again, advised councils, a company called Tullett Prebon brokered 62%. Standard brokerage fee? £24,000 per £10 million borrowed. The people advising councils which financial products to buy were receiving kickbacks from the companies selling those products. Yeah, they weren't advisors, they were salesmen. Newham Council in East London had the highest exposure, £563 million in Lobo loans. At one point, 77% of their council tax income was going just to interest payments, not paying down debt, just interest. 14 councils eventually sued Barclays. They lost. The judge ruled that while the conduct was questionable, it wasn't technically illegal. Oh, and those same Treasury advisors who steered councils towards Lobo loans, they also recommended councils invest their reserves in Icelandic banks. In 2008, those banks collapsed. Councils lost approximately £1 billion. Now, here is the real kicker. No regulatory body oversees Lobo loans. The Financial Conduct Authority considers it unregulated bank lending. The Audit Commission, which might have caught this, was abolished in 2015. Banks made over £1 billion in upfront profits from Lobo deals. The councils, your councils, are still paying the price. You are still paying the price. Which brings us back to where we started. Thurrock and the most audacious alleged fraud in local government history. Between 2016 and 2020, Thurrock Council invested £655 million in 53 solar farms through companies controlled by a man named Liam Kavanagh and his Rockfire Capital Group. To finance this, they borrowed over £1 billion, much of it from 150 other councils across the country. I mean, the idea, on paper at least, wasn't insane. Solar farms generate renewable energy. Renewable energy can be sold. The income pays back the loan with profit left over. Councils win, the environment wins, everyone's happy. Except none of that happened. According to Thurrock Council's own lawsuit, now proceeding in the High Court, Kavanagh allegedly misappropriated approximately £150 million for personal expenses. The £10 million private jet, the £20 million country estate, the luxury cars, essentials. The Bureau of Investigative Journalism spent 3 years fighting for freedom of information requests just to uncover £74 million in payments to Rockfire that the council didn't want to disclose. But it wasn't just Kavanagh. The council's own finance director, Sean Clark, approved these deals despite repeated warnings. In March 2018, an urgent letter expressed concern about extreme appetite for risk. Clark's response? He was given additional borrowing power. In January 2020, legal firm Bevan Britton flagged serious risk before a £40 million investment. Clark authorised it before the issue was resolved. The Financial Reporting Council has since banned Clark and given him a severe reprimand, but the money's gone. Thurrock's residents are now paying 10% more council tax for fewer services. One resident asked the question everyone should be asking. Where the hell is the justice? Why has no one been arrested for embezzling our money? The Serious Fraud Office has opened a criminal investigation, but as of now, Kavanagh has been arrested. He hasn't been charged. The council's suing him in civil court, which, if they win, might recover some of the money in a few years. Meanwhile, the debt remains, the services are cut, and every council that lent money to Thurrock is now trying to figure out how to explain to their own residents why they might not get it back. There is one more piece of the puzzle that ties all of this together. UK councils spend approximately £400 million annually on external consultants. That figure increased by 21% between 2014 and 2018 alone. Total public sector consultancy spending hit £3.4 billion in 2023 to 2024, a 57% increase over 5 years. And who dominates this market? The big four accountancy firms, Deloitte, PwC, KPMG and EY. They account for over 40% of government consultancy spending. Here is the beautiful scam. These firms advise councils on financial strategy. When that strategy goes wrong, councils hire auditors to investigate what happened. Those auditors, they're from the same firms. Croydon paid over £697,000 to consultants and auditors for reports investigating its own collapse, including £168,000 to PwC for reviewing brick by brick. Northamptonshire made its chief executive redundant, then rehired her consultancy within a month. Interim executives at struggling councils command rates of £1,000 to £1,500 per day, equivalent to up to £390,000 a year. Birmingham nearly doubled its consultancy spending from 2.8 million to 5.2 million over 4 years while running a £75 million annual deficit. The system is designed so that the same people profit whether the council succeeds or fails. Well, probably more when it fails, actually, because failure creates billable problems. And while consultants rack up fees, 600,000 council jobs have been lost since 2012. Over 350 youth centres have closed. Birmingham is planning to close 25 libraries and implement fortnightly waste collection. They can't even manage it at all at the minute. Surveys now indicate that half of all UK councils expect to issue bankruptcy notices within the next 5 years. Half. So what do we actually do about this? Because here's the uncomfortable truth, there is no simple single villain here. It's not one corrupt individual or one greedy company, it's a whole system. A system where oversight was deliberately dismantled, where councils were told to be entrepreneurial without the expertise to manage risk, where private companies can extract billions with no accountability, where the same consultants who create problems get paid to solve them. The councils have made terrible decisions, that is true, but they made those decisions in an environment specifically designed to enable terrible decisions. The Audit Commission was abolished because it was seen as unnecessary bureaucracy. LOBO loans weren't regulated because nobody thought they needed to be. Commercial investments were encouraged because central government kept cutting funding. And now half the councils in England think they might go bankrupt. Your council, my council, the places that collect the bins and fix the roads and run the libraries and provide social care for the vulnerable going bankrupt. While Oracle gets paid, Capita gets paid, while consultants get paid £1,500 a day to write reports about why everything's going wrong. The fine print, as always, is where they hide the really important stuff. And in this case, the fine print says, we're all paying for their mistakes. If this made you angry, good. You should be angry. And if you want to see more about how corporations and governments work together in ways that definitely aren't in your best interest, well, I covered the EU's push for digital ID surveillance in my last video. Or the one before that, one of my other videos. Because the pattern is always the same. Promise efficiency, deliver extraction, and leave ordinary people to pick up the bill. I'm Andy Roberts, thanks for watching, and check your council's accounts. You'll probably be surprised about what you find.